You are listening to the Final Say Radio Show, a Rappaport media production, with your host Brett Rappaport and co-host John Rappaport.
Ladies and gentlemen, one of the best friends of the Final Say Radio program, a prolific author and good personal friend of Brett and myself, Jim Robbins. Jim, welcome. How are you?
Hey, doing all right. How are you doing?
As good as always, because I read the news and I somehow managed to compartmentalize it so I could still sleep and think and be a human being, or else, Jim, I'd jump from the tallest building.
Yeah, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on out there. That's a fact.
It is. You have to take it with a sense of humor. So, Jim, so first off, I want to jump right into your article. I read it. I enjoyed it. There's very little you write that I don't really enjoy. It's probably why we became friends. But, great minds think alike. But give us a little bit. What were you thinking, and what are the takeaways you'd like people to have from the commentary that you just wrote in the Washington Times called Obama's Gettysburg Address?
Well, actually, I wrote that a couple of years ago when I was at the paper, and basically just poking fun at Mr. Obama and his pretensions. It's up there on Facebook. Maybe you could put it on your page for folks who are listening to read, but just rewriting the Gettysburg Address as Mr. Obama might deliver it, not really focused on the sacrifices made by others for this country, but more focused on him, because absolutely everything he does is focused on him. And, I'm sure that if he were delivering that kind of speech, it would be all in the first person, all about his own sacrifices and all about all the things he wants to do.
Now, this is actually pretty funny and interesting. So, first off, small faux pas on my behalf. I saw the 13, which I now realize it was written December 13 of 2010. When I saw the 13, my brain immediately caught it as current. But that being said, Jim, interesting mistake, because let's fast forward from when you wrote this. At the time when you wrote this, he was just the charismatic guy with the handsome smile that a bunch of us knew because we looked at his past what to expect. But most people just saw this charismatic guy they wanted to like. We were still somewhat enthusiastic about breaking the glass race ceiling. And there were really, quite frankly, as a country, there were many things to celebrate about having him as president. But those things, Jim, really were all figments of our imagination, dreams of what we'd like the world to be. Now that he's been in office for all this time, we know the world is and what we got from Obama. So looking now at this from a historical perspective, if you were talking to your kids, you would say, hey, one day you're going to vote. Here are the lessons learned. What would those lessons be, Jim?
Oh, gosh, where do you start with this guy? I mean, I think that he was elected, by folks who wanted to make history, quote unquote. I mean, race obviously played a role in this, and people got very excited about that. Also, remember, he was up against John McCain, who wasn't really running a great campaign back then. When you think back to, say, 2008, 2009, and that first wave of enthusiasm, coupled with an economic crisis that no one foresaw, there was a lot of hope for the guy that maybe he could do something. I mean, not by me. I must say, I never once thought that he had the experience, the wherewithal, or anything else to get the job done. And furthermore, it was clear that he was going to surround himself with yes men and ultra-ideological folks and hacks and people like that who really aren't looking out for the best of the country, and I think history has borne that out too. So since then, we've had no real economic recovery. I mean, it's been extremely rocky. We have more people out of work today or not working, dropped out of the system than when he started, more people on food stamps, more people on welfare. Our foreign policy is in tatters. Our country is more divided than ever, politically, racially, or in any way you can name, which incidentally I think is a tactic that the Democrats use. And I really don't see the upside of this administration. Yes, say they killed Osama bin Laden, and that's a great thing. Is that the only thing he's going to go down in history for, the only positive thing that he did? It's possible, but we also have a report that came out that showed that 2010 or 2012 had the most deaths by terrorist acts than any year recorded, and that includes 2001 with the 9/11 attacks. And Al-Qaeda reconstituting itself in Syria and Iraq, and maybe in some ways stronger than ever. So, yeah, he killed that one guy with a drone by remote control, or, he's killed terrorists, by drones with remote control, and fine, it's not working. So what is working with this administration? I really don't know. The great thing about right now is, and we see these polls that show him plummeting, is that folks are finally, they're free to wake up to it. There's no impending re-election where people have to carry his water and, cover for him. Folks can finally just be honest and say, look, the guy lied to us, he's incompetent, and he blew it. And Obamacare is, of course, the thing that the catalyst that's bringing all this out. But I think people are realizing now that it's everything. It's not just, Obamacare is a symptom, but really it's everything. And on everything else, he's had cover, he's had ways to shift blame, he's had his minions out there covering up for him. But on this one, it's just so bold. His lie, if you like your plan, you can keep it. It's just so well exposed that no one can hold it back anymore. And people are just finally saying, okay, forget it.
What's interesting, Jim, is I've always loved the term sunlight is the best disinfectant, and we're seeing some of that, although clearly we were promised this would be the most transparent, and it's been everything but the opposite. I couldn't imagine anybody being more of a distraction. But I'll add a new phrase, which I'll coin right now, which is paying a sort of evolution sobriety check. And I think one of the things we're witnessing here is that people, even young people who voted in droves for this charismatic guy because all the liberal professors and all in school told them that this guy was going to solve all the world's ills and everybody would sing Kumbaya forever after. And now all of a sudden people are waking up to the reality. They can't find jobs, their debt is growing, and now all of a sudden they're being forced to buy health care. Young people are forced to buy geriatric health care, and they're scratching in their heads going, why? We don't need health care. Or we certainly don't need this type. And I think that pain, when it hits people, really strikes them, and it's very hard to live in a fantasy land when you're feeling real and present pain and when you're feeling real and present danger. And it sort of speaks volumes, Jim, to trying to understand when you're looking at the infighting in the Republican Party, let's say between what we'll call Republicans and true conservatives. And it does make you wonder, at what point do you fight the direct confrontation, and at what point do you simply hand them a taller tree, a shorter rope, and a faster horse?
Yeah, I agree with that. With respect to young people who are finding out that there's no free lunch, that Obama's not magic, that one day you actually have to have a job. There's more to life than sitting around some dorm bitching about things. That, now they're finding this quick dose of reality. I think that this may make the millennials, this would be the thing, I hope, that will finally make them take life seriously. That they finally will figure out that they don't get a trophy just for showing up, and that life is hard, and they're going to have to work hard, and without opportunities, they can't even do that. But if they continue to vote for these people who think that polar bears are more important than, them getting a job, well, then fine. Then they're going to wind up living in their parents' basement forever, and good luck to them. With respect to the Republicans, yes, I'm very concerned that they're going to blow this opportunity. They're talking about, I saw something now, that, repeal, we have to repeal Obamacare and things like that. No, don't repeal it. Don't allow the fight to be contextualized as those who want to repeal versus those who don't. The system is failing, but don't go negative. Offer something positive. And not fixing Obama. Say, hey, we have a better idea. This is something, we'll propose a different fix to the healthcare system. Not fixing Obamacare, but just, fixing the system in another way. Come up with a positive proposal. If the Republicans go down the road of they're going to pound this, we're going to repeal Obamacare drum, that will turn against them, ultimately. The media won't allow that. The Democrats won't allow that. The best bet would be, just don't do anything. Just be quiet. Let this play out a little bit. Let the Dems hang themselves a little more. twisting in the wind on this thing, because it's only going to get worse. And so long as it's getting worse, Republicans are winning. So just let it get worse. I mean, they already voted for their, let people keep their plan thing, which the president had bipartisan support. The president said he's going to veto it. Okay, so the only bipartisan bill that comes out of Congress, he immediately says he'll veto without discussion. Great, that makes him look bad. Don't make it worse by going, further down the road, by pushing it further over to the edge. Just let it percolate for a while. Let it simmer. Let the Democrats twist in the wind. Republicans don't need to do anything right now, frankly. They can just let the situation get worse and worse and continue to say, look, we offered a fix. The president said he'd veto it. What do you want us to do? Put it back on him. Get the spotlight back on Obama. Republicans do not need the spotlight on them, because every time it is on them, they wind up blowing it.
Well, it's true, and I think what they need to do is repeat. One of the things the Democrats do much better than the Republicans is they continue to repeat certain phrases and phraseology to try to make sure they get the point across, or they force the other the enemy. Here I am playing by the same game, right? Playing divisive politics, but to some degree they are the enemy because they are weakening and destroying our country. But if you want to play, the real word I meant to use was division. But if you want to look at it from the perspective of the Republicans, what they need to be doing is not accepting and simply saying we're not playing the game of distraction. We're not accepting excuses. We want to understand why. We want to hold you to your word, and we want to know if you're not willing to openly and honestly defend your word. It's fine to say I was wrong, or it's fine to debate whether or not something happened, like a Benghazi issue. But if you're not really willing to go in and debate the issues or to look at what really happened, then we're not even going to move on to the next subject. And I think it's one of the biggest mistakes Boehner has made as a leader, is he continues to move on to the next thing. If Boehner did not let the president distract him by moving to the next issue and pretty much said this time last year, there will not be a discussion on anything. Benghazi is so important to this country and to the transparency of our leadership. We will get to the bottom line of this before we will move on to anything else. And he was steadfast. At some point, Obama wouldn't have a choice. But he blinked, and he blinks every time.
Yeah, well, Benghazi will come back. Don't worry. That issue will come back. A lot of it has to do with timing. You can't be talking about Benghazi when you have to talk about the debt ceiling, for example. And that was just something that everybody forced on themselves. And that's coming up again, by the way. We're going to again go through the trauma of the debt ceiling and the government running out of money and all these things that seem to converge together at once. And I hope that this time the Republicans do not allow Mr. Obama to maneuver them back into that corner where they're like closing the government and stuff like that. They can't win that one. It's a PR problem for everybody, but particularly for the Republicans. And they're not going to win those types of battles. They have to figure out battles where they're thinking a few moves ahead, not just at their fingertips, but a few moves ahead. Things like with the Obamacare funding bill. Don't try to cut it. Just say, okay, we'll pass your bill. We'll give you a clean bill. We'll give you everything you want, but we're just going to require everybody in the White House to sign up for it. That's it. Everybody in Congress, which many Republicans have already done voluntarily, just out of principle. Just have that in the bill. That way it puts the president in a position of explaining why his bill is so crummy. And, when we had Secretary Sebelius up there saying that she was forbidden by law to be in Obamacare, which was just a total lie, and exposed that. I mean, that was brilliant. Things like that are great. So stick to those things where it's the other team that is forced to embarrass themselves, and not giving the other side a platform where they can stand up and say, well, the Republicans are closing down your government. They're throwing children out of their schools, whatever nonsense they make up, and then they close monuments and blame it on the GOP. Don't allow them to have that platform where they can stand up and make all these pronouncements. Put them in a position where they have to embarrass themselves. And that's my main gripe against the GOP. They're just not thinking. I mean, ideologically, yes, I'm all for it. It's fine. Ideologically, yes. But they have to start thinking about how the things that they're going to do will be portrayed by the media and the response from the average non-ideological, non-Tea Party American?
Well, I think that's true because they're usually positioned in the media as being in the wrong, so they understand that they have a much higher bar to hold. For example, I haven't seen nearly as much blowback as you would expect from Nancy Pelosi's ridiculous hoop-de-doo and a do commentary and excuse for trying to defend the healthcare disaster, right? But you have to open it before you get in it, et cetera. And it's very difficult for us to win the attacking people game. We really have to pick only a handful of policies that matter to this country, big ticket items, and we have to ride those all the way to the finish line and be committed to them and explain why they're meaningful to people as Americans, not as Republicans and not as Democrats.
Yes, and the Republicans have to know that they will never get any help from the media on these things, and they have to position themselves in a way that it cannot be misconstrued, or you're not giving the other side a platform from which just to pound you like they do. And again, that's the beauty of the current situation from the Republican point of view. It's really Mr. Obama against himself. Himself months ago promising if you want your plan, you can keep it. And then all of the ways he's tried to wiggle out of that, none of which have been accepted, even by the mainstream media who have been such lapdogs to him. And now, for example, today in the Washington Post, a poll taken after his apology and after his pledge to fix it by the end of November, which, by the way, in his press conference, he subtly tried to slide into December. Yeah, subtle as a rhinoceros horn. But even in that poll, you have the majority of Americans saying they don't have confidence in him, and if the election were held today, Mitt Romney would beat him because the lies that got him reelected are now being exposed. And see, that's just brilliant. Republicans don't have to say a word. Just let it go.
Well, I think it would be smart. So speaking of letting it go, I know you have to run on to another program, so real quick, Jim, update on the book. How far out are we, and where can people best find you nowadays?
Oh, for Custer? Well, Custer will be available in spring on Father's Day. Is when that book's coming out, and it should be really good. I keep trying to figure out how to change the ending, but haven't figured that out yet. Hard to make Custer win, but anyway. And otherwise, I'm just out and about. I'll hopefully have something in USA Today pretty soon, but we'll see.
Okay, excellent. Well, Jim, we'll look forward to speaking with you next week. Thanks again. We consistently are told you're one of our fan favorites, so you're always welcome. We love having you each week, and I wish you an absolutely awesome afternoon. Thanks for joining us on the final stage, Jim.
My pleasure. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Be well.